but it's the 125 and then 29 a month, or it's just you skip the down payment and you immediately start paying 39 per month. That's what I'm saying. Like if you pay 39 up front, you're paying that down payment every year, rather than if you just pay the down payment when you sign up, you pay $29.99 moving forward, but you don't owe another down payment the next year. It's just $29.99 until you decide to terminate the contract, or it's not really a contract, but it's like, until you decide to leave.
Oh, okay. But yeah, you still gotta pay a whole down payment if you don't do
Yeah.
that. That's
Yeah, you said yeah.
like, come on, man, y'all jipping me.
They want their money up front,
Yeah, that's wild.
to say the
But
least.
but how was y'all day though?
Standard Tuesday. I would say I don't have much idle time at work, being that I do have multiple projects that I'm working with, and I'm leading one. Some of them I'm actually doing hands-on work with. Some of the other projects I'm actually leading.
So how do you guys feel when women tell you about their day?
Oh, I mean, man, like, it
Because
depends. It depends on my mind frame that I'm in.
I like it. But at the same time, when I'm hearing everything that's happening, I'm thinking like, damn, this is the shit that really upsets you. Like,
I'm thinking it's
wow.
all about timing.
What do you mean?
Like if that's like when you just got over, or that's the first thing that you hear, is like it hits you a lot. But like I said, I actually do enjoy having insight in for somebody who I care about, hearing what affected them or what they found interesting about the day. Like I enjoy that. But I have been in situations that I have seen other people in the same situation where it's overwhelming. It's like as soon as you start talking to the person, it's just like just talking straight for like 40 minutes, and the other person is just sitting there just like stupefied because of the amount of information. And it's also interesting to see, like Josh, what you were saying about the things like a coworker would make a stupid comment or something like that about like a shirt, and that like upset them, or
Yeah, they complain about their coworkers or something like that. like really? Oh, okay. Like I just sitting there like, okay, interesting.
like think about it. Do you complain about your coworkers, or do you have any legitimate complaints?
Me personally, I don't work with my coworkers. That's the thing. Like I'm always by myself in houses with the kids, so I don't have to deal and come in contact with my coworkers. The only time
You're the
I
only
really
professional.
the only time I even actually see my coworkers is on a Zoom call with the meeting every month. But at the same time, I don't really see that because we have new people coming in, so I don't even know who's on ABA side, who's on mental health side, who's actually my coworkers or not. You know what I mean? So it's different for me. Like, I mean. I don't think I would be the same way though, as far as like if it affected me, I'd be like taking negatively. I'm just like, that's how people are, it is what it is. But I don't deal with my coworkers though. But
I think we're similar in the way that we handle our work. Like we are there to show up, do a job, and leave. Like so all the extra stuff. Like of course I love being social with my coworkers, and quite a few of them have actually turned into friends, like Jay, Michael, for example. But ultimately I don't. I know Des is kind of talked about compartmentalization, but you kind of have to a certain degree, or at least that's what I found works for me, or something that's innate.
Have you ever had a problem with a coworker?
Professionally, no. Like back at maybe like McDonald's, yeah.
Maybe that's McDonald's, okay.
I mean, it was different because that person, they had done something wrong, and I was trying to correct them, but because they were older than me, they didn't like that.
Gotcha, yeah. You like it, Des? You said it just depends.
Yeah, I think it depends. Like, I think it's a maturity thing too. At the same time, I think it's maturity, and then the state that you're currently in when they're like the state of mind, I guess you could say. Because like if you got a lot of shit you're dealing with throughout the day, you're not gonna want to hear all that stuff. But at the same time, like if you know how to decompress properly, if you know how to take that time out for yourself, then you know how to genuinely make time for other people. So I think there are times where like you kind of enjoy hearing what people have to say just because it's the satisfaction of knowing that they got something off their chest. I think that's how it is for me. Like, when everything's nice and oiled and lubricated and I'm, flowing the way I'm supposed to flow as a person, like, I could talk to somebody all day and not be annoyed. Just like when I'm in my own zone and I don't want to be bothered, and that's when I'm kind of like, yeah, you ain't got to tell me all this. I really don't care. I try to stay as far as away from that because, like,
wait, would you say that though? If you don't care, would you say like I don't care? Like, would you
know
that?
how to say that stuff without necessarily saying it?
Were you gonna drop hints? Because Not everybody can follow
of
hints.
course,
Though.
bro.
Not everybody
Oh, no,
follow
bro.
hints.
I
Though.
mean, that's why I say you can say what you want to truly say without saying those exact words. Like,
So how would you do it?
They could tell by your response.
So how would you do it?
I think it's all hypothetical. I think I would just give a typically what you do is you just give a really dry response. Like,
So you don't even tell, you avoid it.
yeah, like I give you a "that's what's up" response.
Oh, word.
Like, damn, that's crazy.
Josh,
Damn, that's crazy is my go-to.
Josh, so what's your way of handling that then?
As far as no, I think well, like I said before, I'm usually interested in hearing about the day, but I think I usually, well, from experience, I probably would do the same thing. I would try to give just like a, oh wow, really, that's crazy. But at the same time, okay, this kind of goes into my next question. Would you actually give advice when they're actually complaining to you?
Hold on, before we go into that, I think the way that I would handle that, or the way that I have handled in the past, is just like it's just not a good time. Like I'm very direct about that. I don't feel
But
the need.
you think women is gonna be like, okay, cool, perfect.
I mean, if you have the level of understanding.
You got the level of understanding.
If you have the level of understanding.
Okay, good luck, Bryan. But yeah, you can say the truth. That don't mean they're gonna accept it though. Like, you're like, I don't want to talk right now. But oh, you don't want to talk to me? Talk to your other bitch then. Some shit like that.
You know, that's like their spell card they like playing.
Yeah, you know, you never know. So yeah, but I was saying, like, when they're giving advice, do you ever actually like try to give them? I mean, when they're talking to you about their day, do you ever actually try to give them advice while they're doing it? Because I think that was my mistake before. I used to do that, like try to give them advice. Now I'm just like, and I just listen. Like, even if I want to hear it or not want to hear, I just listen to see what they got to say, and then I think to myself, how would I handle that situation? But unless they ask me like, oh, what should I do for this situation, I don't actually give my advice. So I'm curious to hear what you guys do, like, or you guys just let it go, just hear, like what?
Like, unless they ask, no, because it's unsolicited. So like,
nobody likes unsolicited advice.
I just put myself, and I think about instances where I was in a conversation with just anybody, and I was talking about something, and then the first thing they try to prescribe something, it's like, okay, well, first off, there's extra information involved that you don't know, and you're quickly trying to find a solution for it. And it's like, I understand it comes from a place of trying to be helpful, but it's not exactly the best approach when you're trying to have a good relationship with anybody.
There's a saying that the road to hell is always paved with good intentions.
So what in that instance, like, what makes a better friend? Like a friend that would tell you if you're doing something detrimental, or someone who lets you go through it and have you find it out yourself?
There's degrees, man. Like, I say there's degrees because, like, some people, they do need to go through and make those mistakes numerous times to learn from them. You know, like, not everybody is a wizard. Not everybody's truly wise to, you know, their ways. I mean, that's the easiest way to say it. Not everybody's wise and aware and adept to their ways. So some people have to make those mistakes until they have to ask their question to themselves, like, okay, this keeps happening. What am I doing that's contributing to this happening? Like, I think everybody needs to hit that. Like, there are some people, like my god brother, that can just take advice and be able to live that advice as if it's his own, you know, trials and tribulations. Like, he's able to listen to other people's stories and apply that like he went through it himself, and to avoid situations. So it's like, there's some people that have that knack, and then there's some people that, like myself, like I'm somebody that I need to learn from experience. I'm not somebody that you're just gonna be able to talk to and I understand. Or I'm not gonna say understand. I always understand and comprehend what's being told, but I'm not gonna take what you have to say as the letter of the law. I'm gonna wanna experience why that is the letter of the law before I actually subscribe to it.
If you have experience with that, have you ever come across a situation where, I'm pretty sure you have, where you go through it all and then you think back, oh, I should have listened to that advice?
Always. Bro, I can't tell you how many times, like, I've told my mom, like, even, like, I won't ever speak on my situations as if they're undesirable, because I think that we all have control over the situations that we put them in. But there's been times where I've been like, you know what, you were right. But I'll also say at the same time, like, even though you're right, I needed to go through this so I can understand. Because if I'm following advice that isn't leading me to my destination. Like if you're just giving me advice based off what I should do, but you're not providing the further mentorship and tutelage to get me from 1A to 1B and then 1C all the way to 1Z to get me to point or to the second point or second part of, you know, this growth that you're talking about, then people get disconnected. Like you can't give somebody advice, whether it be solicited or not, and then that be the end of you know whatever it is you guys are talking about. Like if you're going to give solicited advice or unsolicited advice and people subscribe to that, then like I feel like it's your duty to continue to provide that advice, whether it be to get to, you know, point A to point B, or you're at 1A to 1Z. Like people need that because you're giving advice on the understanding that there is a perspective that they are not representing or respecting, and then you have to be that representative to provide that perspective to them. And to just do that without providing further guidance is a disservice, because you've already acknowledged that this person does not have the ability to view front life in itself or just this issue from multiple perspectives. Like that's why I really don't like giving advice. Not because of the accountability aspect, but because I understand that if somebody does not have the ability to view life from multiple perspectives, that teaching in itself is one of the hardest things to do. Like I learned that in philosophy. Like there would be times where I would think way before I even got to ODU that I was the wisest person ever walked this earth. And then when I started taking philosophy classes and I started realizing that there's a whole nother realm to thinking, and that there were things that we were going over that I could not even comprehend, that's when I realized it was okay, enough hubris, enough pride, enough ego. Let's actually sit back and like humble ourselves and realize that there's so much more to this life than I. Like if you're going to be somebody's mentor, you have to truly embody that role in itself. Like even to this day, even though like I haven't fully completed everything for law school, like my god brother is still on my ass about it. He's still on my ass the same way he was about it back in 2015 when he graduated. You know, 5 years later, like he's still on my ass about it. So, you know, that's what I mean by being somebody's mentor or just giving advice. Like you have to be resilient with that advice you're giving. You can't just give it and then if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Okay. So present day, when someone gives you advice, like your mom's or your dad or something like that, do you still take it like with a grain of salt, or do you just push it to the side completely and just go experience it yourself?
I rebuttal it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's been countless times where like my parents and I have had like the perspectives conversation, and they've learned to respect that, because you got to remember, like, not just being a parent, but being an African American parent, like it's one of those things where black people always say, well, you can do what you want when you get up out my house. And it's like one of those things to where, you know, I don't know why it is, but you can't possibly think with rational mind that infringing upon your child's free will is going to set them up for success. Like when you constantly have that, you know, do as I say, not as I do mentality, you create a submissive child where that child, yes, they might be able to think independently, but it's a severely restricted ability to think independently. Like your children in themselves, when they come into this earth, they have the means to communicate, whether that be through crying, whether it be through pointing, whether that be through just grabbing without asking. Like they have a means of communicating, and it's to our fault, us bringing them in to learn those ways of communicating, and then those ways of communicating either become a detriment or a beneficiary to that child's growth. So at our point, like what I'm bringing everything full circle with is like, you know, reason why I started being more, I'm not going to say diplomatic, but more debate oriented towards those approaches is because you can't be a rebel outside the house and then a saint in the house. Like that's backwards. Like you need to be one with yourself in the house. So when you bring this complete being into the real world, there's nothing fraudulent about you. Like at some point, people are going to be able to dig at that armor, that armor of rebellion or whatever it may be, and say, okay, there's a bigger problem with this person, why he's acting this way. And once that curtain is pulled back and you ass naked in the shower, the world sees you for who you truly are. So the reason why I say you got to have those conversations with your parents is because there's a point in your life when your parents are the people you fear the most. And so when they provide that authoritarian, rhetoric where they say, do as I say, not as I do, or they leave no room open for debate, they're doing that child the big disservice, because children in their just by nature are very inquisitive. Like my son's the most inquisitive child I've ever come across, just because I spend all the time in the day with him. But I realize that as I be more authoritative towards him, that inquisition deteriorates. So just me knowing what I know, like there has to be means for pushback, because I'm not gonna say pushback, but there has to be means for dialogue, because like I said, like a rebel in the house, and then a rebel in society, but a saint in the house is just the biggest contradiction that could possibly be, because it's not sustainable. Like you have to be one with yourself inside before you can ever be, this figure you portray yourself to be outside. Not saying that I was that person, but just knowing what I know, it's easy to identify those type of people.
And I do agree with just about everything you said there about having the necessity of having a dialogue, or having the skill to have a dialogue with your parents, because I feel like that's where it really starts at. So like if your parents aren't equipping you with that life skill, once you get out the house, what are you going to do? Because you have to negotiate all throughout life, whether it's in school, work, your relationships. You have to do that. Like there's always going to be a necessity for it. So if you get into situations and you don't have that skill, then what he was saying, like your options are extremely limited, or you're just going to be submissive to the situation. So anything that somebody else says goes.
Who are you closer with, Bryan? Your mom or your dad?
Who am I closer with?
Yeah.
It's hard to say. I would say just about equal, really.
Maybe.
We talk about the same amount.
Oh, okay. I was wondering if you had those conversations like Des did with his parents. What okay?
Not in a long time, because I haven't lived with my parents in a long time either.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean like when you was with them, yeah.
Yeah, when I was younger, yeah, we definitely did have talks about, like, I can remember we talked about this on the episode about parenting with Tanner and Fitz, how I had some concerns about like my freedom, and like the other kids in the neighborhood, they were just roughshod, allowed to do whatever they wanted to, but I kind of had a feeling of being sheltered, which I was up until the time where I started doing sports and actually working, to where I was able to go out more, and that was just a byproduct of having those additional responsibilities. But I had wrote a letter. I had left it for my parents, and I had said, "Wake me up when you get this," because my dad got off work late, and I just left it. So we had that conversation, and they actually, my parents, I can definitely say, this may not be other people's experience, but they actually did listen to me. So when I did have concerns and things like that, they actually took it to heart and tried to understand my perspective. And I like to think as a consequence of that, I came out better on the other end of it, because even though my feelings weren't, they did have some validity, but it could have been a skewed perspective. But the fact that we were allowed to have a conversation, it gave me more clarity. And then they were better able to reassess how they were parenting me. And then I was better able to reassess how they were parenting me as well. Like my perspective as a child, saying, okay, well, this is what they think. This is why. So I had a little bit more insight, as opposed to just being told, this is my house, do this. Is that how you grew up?
No, I grew up more with the what Desmond was talking about, as far as like do as I say, not as I do approach with my parents. It was less explaining for the most part. I just had to learn on my own for the most part, really. That's how it is. Black parents, right?
And don't get me wrong, there's been some moments. And then like when you're around your cousins and other people, you see that too. We've all experienced it.
Have you guys ever like gone to your parents for advice on girls?
Yes.
You have?
Not in a long time though.
How did that go?
It was, I think, one of the toughest times. It was back like when I was in early high school or middle school, and I was talking to my dad, and I was destroyed. And
Were
so,
you like got out of a relationship or something?
Yeah, it was this chick that I was dating and talking to, and I forgot exactly what happened, but long story short, she ended up with somebody else. And so, like I said, that just decimated me. And I thought that was going to be like the last. I was like, nah, you got more coming there. But so I was talking to my dad about it, and he had told me like he actually asked me like what was going on because he saw I wasn't up to par like my normal self, and we sat down and talked for a little bit, and then one of the things he said was like, "It's tough," like, and that thing that was like the end of the conversation. But preceding that, there was like a long dialogue, but ultimately what that really boiled down to, I think that was one of the most important things he could have said because yeah, like it was a shitty situation, it sucked, but there's like what do you do from there? Like you have to move on from it. It's not anything like there's nothing else for you to do. Some things just are just bad situations. You got to move on from it.
You know what my dad would say?
What's that?
Man, fuck that, baby. Your life. Dad, it's not that simple. You can't really do that, Dad. With advice.
Do you think that's effective advice?
You said it affect? No, that's not.
You don't think it's effective?
I mean, if you that type of person, but everybody's different. Like you can't just move on. Like okay, gotcha, I'm out. Fuck that. Like you can't just like it's not just a simple going through a door and you're simply something else. It's a process.
It's a process.
Yeah, exactly. It's the whole process that goes with it. So, yeah, how about you, Des?
What I'll say about parents and relationships, they always tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. Like that's why I said what I said before is like
always.
Yeah, I can say like all the advice that I've got from my parents. Like I'm a middle child, so I kind of really want to experience everything for myself. That's just how I've always been. But what I'll say is like also me being very conscious and aware of my surroundings and the impact of every decision you make, how that affects the next few decisions that are going to, or I'm not gonna say decisions, but the next few things that you face. Like I didn't get that from, I didn't get it out the sky. Like that's something that they taught me. So, I'll say that like if they saw me going down a path of neglect, they would say what they needed to say. And me not necessarily acknowledging the path of neglect, I would ignore it. Like they have the ability to analyze and diagnose your outcomes just based off your current actions. Like that's something that I'm pretty sure we all know how to do now. Like we already know that if we wake up and we don't eat, or we wake up and we don't water our plants, they're not going to grow. So they're able to sit here and say like they're able to ask questions. My parents, they're able to ask questions. If you're not watering that plant, they know without you even having to tell them. They'll ask like they'll ask 1A questions or 1C questions because there's always that main question, and then there's A, B, C that make up that one question. They'll ask A, B, C before they ask the main question, just to get the answer to that main question without having to ask. Like I say it that way because they're still parents. Like they don't necessarily want to be all up in your business, but when you ask them for that advice, they have to get some type of information or some type of data or data, however you want to say it, to give you a correct and appropriate answer. So that's just how my parents were. Like they never told me anything to satisfy my ego. Like my mom was like, she would tell me really quick if I needed to leave somebody, and it was my decision whether I chose to leave them or not. Like they'd be the first to. Like my mom could.
Well, how do you know when that advice is correct though, or you two just need to figure shit out? Maybe you two
you don't
need to communicate more or some shit.
Because parents bear that wisdom that you don't have yet. So my parents could look at whoever I'm dating or whoever I'm talking to, and they'll be, without any interaction, they'll look at how that person carries themselves, and they'll make their decision right there. Like no type of contact. My parents have this like really weird ability to read people and know what they're about before hearing anything they have to say, because your character speaks. Like that's what everyone sees first. They see the body, they see the mask, and then as you begin to talk, then that's when they get to understand, who you are as a person. The two have to correlate. Like you can't be out of balance, because even if there's that imbalance to where the character doesn't match what's coming out your mouth, then there is that kind of fraudulent, it's that fraudulent person that I spoke of before. Whereas if like it's the bravado, but the bravado doesn't match the confidence coming out of your mouth, then we know that you're relying on something, I guess you could say, looks, physical makeup, something like that. Like everything has to be this cohesive unit, and they're able to just, you know, they're able to read that. I don't know if it's because, you know, being in the Navy, you come across, you know, thousands and thousands of people throughout your, you know, 30 years or whatever. But like they have this ability to just read people really well. And that's something I never want to hear because, you know, my pool of selection is but only so big. Like, you know, I need to have that experience. But at the end of the day, like anybody that I can, you know, firmly say, like people that my mom will ask about, like in a bright sense, like I wouldn't want nothing to do with them. But the people that my mom would tell me I needed to leave would be the ones that I stayed with. So I was like, you know, I could honestly say like they knew what they were talking about. You just have to depend on your person. Like you kind of got to experience life for yourself. You either want that experience or you want that wisdom.
True. What's the most you guys ever did for a girl?
Studied.
What do you
Like
mean?
study in the sense of trying to put myself in the frame of mind and give myself the information that I needed to understand. Her, for example, this one particular woman, she had depression and anxiety. So in order for me to be more supportive, I did like tons of reading on the conditions and how to be better supportive, how to be more considerate, things that weren't actually innate to me, in an effort to make it work out. I mean, that wasn't something that was easy. It was extremely time consuming. It's just something that, you know, I could have just done was easier not done and just left it at that. But I saw it as being worth it, so I did that.
Okay.
I mean, I think mine is obvious. I fathered somebody's child, so I think that's the most challenging thing any man will have to do, because it's not just about being there as the, whether you be the husband or you be the other half of the co-parenting setup or whatever it may be. Like you have to be on top of your shit as a man. Like it's not always about the providing aspect. It's about understanding what has caused you to act the way that you have been acting, and what are you doing to break those chain of action. So, you know, I think that's something that I think that's the most impactful thing that the most I've ever done for any female, just because you want, even if it's an unfavorable situation, you want to make those odds be more in your favor, even though the odds are still less in your favor. Like you want to be a -50 underdog rather than a -500 underdog, if you get what I'm saying. Like you want those odds to slowly sway your way. So I think for me, like, you know, saying that I think we talked about this before as well on the like a few weeks back with Larry and is it Monte?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I told him my greatest achievement was like figuring parenting out on my own, like not needing any external forces to come in and tell us how we needed to parent. Like that's something I wanted to do because I wanted to maintain a level of friendship with my son's mom. Like no matter what you say, like no matter who I choose to marry, no matter who I choose to lay with, like there's not going to be that level of energy exerted to another person, because the amount of energy that it takes, like we see how hard it is just to I'm not gonna say stay faithful in a relationship, but how hard it is to marry, or I'm not gonna, you know, we'll scrap that because some people make marriage really easy. But what I'll say is we see how hard it is for people to co-parent when they've been given a court mandated document. Like we're making this look effortless based off of communication and respect for each other. And not to say that communicating and respecting another woman is like the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but to be able to put so much aside like it never existed for the sake of your child, like that's like the hardest thing I've ever had to do, not just for my son but for her as well, because some people can't do that. Some people let that negative energy consume who they are, and not only does the child pay for it, but the other parent pays for it as well. Like You know, I think the biggest contradiction to me is like, you know, these people are married for 10 plus years, or they've dated for 4 how many years, and they had these children, and that union goes out the window with the marriage. Like, it's okay to separate from people and maintain respect for them. And I feel like for whatever reason, people lose that respect thing, whether it's because they felt like they were entitled to loyalty or whatever. Like, I've already explained how I feel about loyalty. You're really only truly loyal to what you feel benefits you. And if it no longer benefits you, then it becomes a disservice. So for us to put all that aside, for us to put all that to the side and to form this external union that has blossomed into something that's truly beautiful, to where like I'll go to my grave being super excited about that, because I tell you, as a Black male, like my biggest fear is standing in front of the judge begging for time for my son. But I get that time whenever I want now.
Okay. Okay.
So I guess you could say the biggest thing that I've ever done for a female was like learn to forgive. Learn to forgive, but not forget, but be able to get past that level, like get off on the exit and then figure out how you can continue to, I guess you could say, create a friendship, whatever. Because I mean, people could have their view on it. Like people could say it sounds simp, but it's like, I'm not saying none of this to impress you. I'm saying this to give you insight on what could be, because we've already seen what is and what has happened with, you know, men that don't take care of their business, that don't answer the door or answer the phone when them demons gonna call them. Like, you gotta do all that shit at some point in your life, whether it be at 25, or for me, I think it was 22, whether it be at 22, 18, 16, or 45, like, you gotta answer that door at some point.
Okay, because when you said, because when the question was what's the most, and when you said like giving her a child, I was like, I don't think she was necessarily planning to have a child. Like you was necessarily giving her a child. Like that's not really okay. I understand.
Well, I'll say at the same time, like children do have the ability to indirectly save, like, and not being like overbearing, but just speaking in broad context, children do have the ability to better people. Like having my son has made me a better person.
Do they always do that?
No, that's what I said. They do have the ability indirectly. Like, child not coming out the womb, yeah, you better be the best dad ever. Like some people, you know, they say like, okay, I realize that this is an unfavorable situation by any stretch of the imagination. How can I make this better? And to be able to be mature enough, wise enough, and experienced enough to make that, you know, make that distinction. I mean, you won't ever hear nobody complain about me as a, or you won't ever hear my baby moms complain about me not being a father to my son. Like that's dead. You'll never see nothing like that.
Okay. Did you have something to say, Bryan, before I switch gears? No? Okay. So how would you guys feel? So how would you guys feel if you guys work for something in this society? You reap the benefits of everything. You got to the peak of it, and people said that you had to give some of it back. Like you had to take some of that success away. Because I feel like you're basically do that with the question you asking if Jeff Bezos has too much money. Like, should Jeff Bezos should be punished for having too much money? I just want to know. Like, why should Jeff Bezos be punished for having too much money? Because I feel like I've seen that a lot lately. Because Amazon is growing as a company.
You're asking based off the hypothetical question that I had discussed before.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't advocating that he should be punished or anything like that. I have a problem with that way of thinking. Like, of course, people like I'll see people who say that, you know, why are you defending somebody that has this amount of money, or, you know, they have so much money that it would take you could have worked and made this much money from the time Jesus Christ was born to now, you still wouldn't have a fraction of the money he has. And I get that. But my concern, like when it comes to money, I don't really live in other people's pockets. I don't care what other people have. Like other people's successes, I try to glean as much information as from it as possible. So from someone like from his perspective, I understand that he did have to work hard to get where he's at. Like if it was easy, then everybody would be in his position.
Is it possible to have too much money?
Is it possible to have too much money?
Yeah.
If it's to your detriment, like more money than you know what to do with, and you're driving yourself into the ground. But if you're working for it and you just keep getting more and more and more, I'm not gonna hate on you for it. That just seems ridiculous to me. Like I do think he does have more than enough for him to be well off with. But if he's earning it, that's his money. Now, when it comes to like taxes and how much somebody should be taxed with that amount, that's a different conversation. I don't know, but I'm not a fan of the idea of being concerned about other people's finances.
Okay. Is it possible for someone to have too much money, Des?
I said, nah. Everybody says that until they're in that situation, and you know, like Bryan said, I'm not one to pocket watch. Like I look at those people as motivation because it's like
Exactly.
there's no way I'm gonna duplicate that success. Like no matter how motivated I am by that, like there's no way for me to duplicate what Jeff Bezos has done and become a billionaire. However, to have a percentage of that billion, like whether it be 1% or whatever it may be, like if I'm able to take the tools that Jeff Bezos or whatever it be, the knowledge, the wisdom that he has attained over the years, and take a piece of that and apply it to my life, and I can retire with my feet up 7 figures way before 55 or 65, then you know, what is there to hate about that? Like that's the thing. Like people are quick to pocket watch when they are unaware of all the different ways you can accumulate wealth. Like there's an endless amount of wealth that you can obtain by trading stocks. There's no limit on it. There's an endless amount of weight that you could attain by trading forex. There's an endless amount of wealth that you can obtain by doing just about anything in this life. But because it's centered around this capitalist structure to where people look at it as he's obtained this $1 billion of wealth through what people are presuming is predominantly Amazon, and his workers are feeling this, that, and the third effects of, you know, not being paid properly, or there's still people on the street starving or whatever it may be. Then they look at that wealth and saying, well, he's not doing what he's supposed to do. Like I think he's doing exactly what he's supposed to do. Like we can't, and I say this, I feel like I say this over and over again, we can't blame the system for working the way it was designed to work. Like people have been disgruntled about not being, you know, billionaires or millionaires or living below the poverty line for years, but like the harsh reality of it is that, you know, you're given the same 24. You can no longer, no matter how you say it, you're always given the same 24. And I say that to say this: my 24 is different than the next man's 24, but I still make time to obtain new knowledge and to implement that knowledge to try and better my current situation. Whereas some people will say, like, I don't have the time. There's 24 hours in a day. Like, you can still fold those clothes. You can still take your child to school. You can still do X, Y, and Z, but you have to sacrifice something for it. You might not get that 8 hours of sleep, but that 8 hour, that you know, those 4 hours that you're sacrificing, you get 4 hours of sleep, you're staying up an extra 4 hours to obtain new knowledge or whatever. That's going to pay off sooner rather than you continuing to get that 8 hours of sleep and complaining about your current situation. So I think people don't like hearing the sacrifice aspect that comes with this system, because nothing in this system is unobtainable. Everything in this system is attainable with the asterisk on it, because there is still, as we already know, racial tension. There is, and I think Stephen A, you know, hit this nail on the head with this. It's like when you look at African Americans, and even the NBA, when you look at African American coaches who are more than qualified to be in these $1 million head coaching positions, but he was more or less focusing in on Cliff Kingsbury, who was the head coach for the Cardinals. Like, he had no college, he had no NFL experience, and he had a very, very subpar collegiate record as a head coach, but he got that head coaching gig at Arizona just based off of that. You know, what we know to be is that I know a guy that knows a guy that can plug me into this position. Whereas there was numerous black head coaching candidates that had winning records. You can even feel that way about what's his name? I think this is Matt Patricia. He replaced some dude in Detroit, and even if Matt Patricia was supposed to, if he won the next 28 games, he would still have a worse record than the black head coach that he replaced. Like, we see continuously that yes, this racial divide does still exist, not just socially, but in the economic realm as well. But those men are still millionaires at the end of the day. Like, they've still made it to an extent. Yes, there's still some bias against them, but they have made it further than what black men 30 years ago were making. Like, they made it further than what, you know, black men 30 years ago. Not to say that that's like an achievement, like you get a participation trophy for it, but it's still improvement. So I just say that to say this, that you have the power within the system to change a situation. Like, you can either keep complaining about the way it is, or you can reap the benefits of it and then disconnect from that system without having to be a part of it anymore. Like, that's my goal. Like, I want to accumulate the most wealth possible to where I can leave the system and not be a detractor from it or a beneficiary of it. Detractor being like somebody that's being used in it to make this shit continue to go and cycle, and a beneficiary of it to where I'm continuing to, you know, do what I got to do. Like, the generational wealth thing, that's something that I feel like deeply about. Like, if I could make my millions and then invest that into a family business, I would do it. And we live off however much a year, like I'd be 110% content with that. But at the same time, like, there's trials and tribulations with that as well. Like, you by you doing that, you re-enter that system. So it's something that, you know, I think a lot about. You know, I can't say I haven't came up with a plan, but I have came up with a plan. I just need to, you know, figure out what's the best way. Point A to point B.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I've just been seeing quite a few posts about people just taking all of Jeff Bezos' money away, giving it to the employees, but he'll still have like over $10 billion left or something like that. So I was just wondering. And then I think on the episode when we was talking about what does black mean, like what does being black in America mean, I don't remember our guest from that. Jalen. Was it Jalen? Okay, well, yeah, Jalen said yes to that question. Whether was it possible for someone to have too much money? So I was just curious if you guys thought the same way. And see how that was.
I mean, once your basic needs are met, one of the things I do like about capitalism is you do have the ability to reap more benefits, like the harder you work. And like, I do say that with the preface that once your basic needs are met, I mean, we all are very well aware that there are external factors that affect people, kind of like we talked about last week about the phenomenon or the myth of black on black crime. So we aren't completely ignorant to that. We're not ignorant to it at all. We're actually in the know about it. But I really don't think that everyone needs to be trillionaires either. Like, the idea of most people are content with just being able to do well. I get that. But I think there's a lot of options open to us. Like what Desmond was saying, you can look at what somebody else is doing for their success and use it as a template for what you could possibly do and apply it to yourself. But one thing he did say, you kind of clarified later on, you had mentioned that you could look at what Jeff Bezos is doing. There's no way that you're going to make that much money. But I was thinking, like, why not? Like, of course it's going to be difficult, but
it's possible.
It's highly unlikely. I do get that.
Yeah, you can meet a black Jeff Bezos. Black Bill Gates in the making.
I mean, there's a tremendous amount of sacrifice that goes into those people's lifestyles. Like, to be Bill Gates has to sacrifice a lot. Like, it might look like they have everything on the outside. From, I guess, if finance is your primary concern, you see somebody with money, they have it made. But you also don't think about, they have normal human things like relatives pass away. There's certain events that they miss out on.
Did you say I'm sorry. Go ahead.
They have like they could possibly have health conditions. So like from if you're only concerned about money and somebody has money, you think they have it made, but you don't know the totality of what else they're experiencing, what else they're going through, or what the things they have to give up to get where they're at. What's your question, Des?
I was gonna say, were you asking why I said you wouldn't be the next Jeff Bezos, or you're saying that I actually cleared that up?
Yeah, you did clear it up. You were saying that
Okay.
there was no way that you could possibly do that, but then you also offered the caveat of you've been able to do just about anything. So you don't really feel like there's a self-imposed gap or cap on yourself.
A reason why I just say like specifically the Jeff Bezos thing is because everything has to fall into play at the perfect time. Like you could look at, what was it, the .com boom or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you have to think about that, and then you also have to look innovation. I mean, you could say innovation is at an all-time high, but the competitiveness of the market is also at an all-time high, to where like so many people are offering the same product at a different experience. But how many people are offering what Amazon does? Like I don't see a lot of people doing that. Like Amazon has the market on lock, like almost to the point where you could question if it's a monopoly. But I could honestly just sit here and think the only thing that I could see to rival Amazon will be something like eBay. But Amazon is already 100 up. Like nobody's catching that. Like the amount of stuff that Amazon has done, like nobody can. I'm not gonna say nobody can catch Jeff Bezos, but just what Amazon has been able to accomplish, I don't think we've seen anything like it. Like just with the acquisitions, and then the fact that they have contracts with USPS at a time where, you know, Trump is talking about cutting spending. Like he's not just, and I'm no means like a Jeff Bezos fan. I wouldn't know of him if I seen him in person, but at the same time, like the opportunities have been there and he's capitalized on them, just to say the least. And this is something up.
They have groceries now. They could deliver groceries. Yeah, it's up there as definitely. But okay, yeah. I was just wondering, anything else? I'm all done though. Anything else you guys want to add though before we wrap up the actual episode?
No, I don't want to make it run too long.
I got you. All right, Des, you up, man?
I don't know if I've ever added my playlist as a album of the week, but I do have a playlist that I created.
Your workout playlist?
Nah, it's on the workout playlist.
Oh,
this
okay.
is a playlist I actually created a while back that I forgot all about. I'm pretty sure I have included it up here for this part, but it's my 6 p.m. on a Thursday playlist. I forgot all.
You have used that.
I'm using it, but I'm using it again because I forgot all about this playlist until like 2 days ago. So this has been the only thing, like for work day, I've actually been wanting to post to Instagram, like what are your at home or working from home playlists. Like this is my work from home playlist because it's a no skip playlist. Like I can listen to every song endless amounts of times, and they don't really shuffle because it's almost a 4-hour playlist. And I mean, I know people work for 8 hours, but you know, I don't have it playing the whole time. Like I'll have it playing the last, you know, couple hours, or I'll have it playing the first, you know, 3 hours of my shift before I get in that groove, and then I cut it off because, or whatever. But I'm gonna have to go with that one again because it has been what I've been listening to like a lot of this week.
What kind of songs do you put in this playlist exactly?
Oh, it's all R&B. Like it's all from 2010 back. So it can go all the way back to like the 60s, but I mean, you got anywhere from Jaheim, Tyrese, Anita Baker.
You just in the house singing?
Man, I don't even be. Like, sometimes you just gotta hit a little two-step, man. That Curtis Mayfield, come on. You just gotta get up. You got a client on the mind. You just gotta, you gotta get a little two-step.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, cool. If you guys like the discussion, though, don't forget to hit the like button. And we're going to see you guys next week. Peace.
But while you're here, be sure to check out other great content from the Breakdown crew, including previous episodes of the podcast, Joshua vs. Movies, Joshua vs. Music, and of course, haven't forgotten about my plant lovers, Feel the Love. Just check out this begonia.